Okay, so I'm going to get started here. Welcome, everybody. I am Marisa Calderon, and I'm with Alessi Group. I'm with the Kindergarten Experience presented by Alessi Group, and today we have Dr. Garcia along with some of our attendees, past teachers that we worked with, some in our special two guests, Principal Jennifer Truitt Lewis, and I mean, I know you were a teacher at Fort Huachuca, Danielle, but we have Danielle Brown also on here. And just to give a little background on today's chat, Debbie Everett and I had visited Fort Huachuca recently to do a social and emotional session. We did a module over there. And we were able to connect with Jennifer and some of her teachers, along with some other Sierra Vista teachers. And through our training, it came up how the teachers there at Fort Huachuca had experienced, well, actually not experienced any really like explosive behaviors. There wasn't any sending children to the principal's office. And they gave credit to this little strategy that you guys started to implement that was teacher initiated. And I don't want to give too much away because I want you guys to talk about it. When I had gone back, when we had came back to Phoenix, Debbie had mentioned it to Dr. Garcia, and she thought it would be a really great opportunity for you guys to be on, and that way the other teachers can learn about what you guys did. Does that kind of sum up our little conversation, Jennifer and Isela?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So tell us about, or go ahead, Isela.
I think that, it's one of the things that we talk quite a bit about in our sessions, the need for children to be outside and to have more outdoor play experiences. And so I was super excited to hear a program in state, because we hear about this at a national level where there's so many schools that are saying, the children have like 10 minutes at a time, and that's kind of it outside. And, I can go into the brain development and why the issues around that. And what I'm getting a lot of requests, or I guess conversations around, is this idea that children have executive function issues. And my biggest argument about executive function issues is that I don't think they're actually issues at all. I think we're not setting up our environments that are conducive to what children need. And so when I heard that you all were really making some concerted effort to really support children and their need to be outdoors, I thought this would be a good opportunity to hear from a school that's implemented it. So please tell us your journey and the experiences that you've had as you've added more outside time.
Sure. So I'll talk about it to begin with. I'll get us started, and then I want Ms. Brown to talk about it as well. When the House bill was getting all of the publicity for that extra recess and what would be mandated and things like that in the state, as administrators, we're looking at it. Can we fix it? Can we organize it in our day if we had to do something like this? And it was just good timing. Ms. Brown came to me and she said, "Hey, I want to try this out." And, I said, "Okay, let's do it." So Ms. Brown, do you want to talk about how you came to decide to jump on and try this out?
Sure. So I would say the summer of 2016, I became very fascinated with what other states were doing for recess. So lots of things would come across my Facebook feed about like a school or a district in Texas was doing an hour worth of recess a day. Something in North Carolina was happening where kids were getting recess, what seemed to me at the time like an extra amount. And so I was just super excited about that. And I remember even like posting it on my Facebook so everyone else could see. maybe not so covertly, but my goal was for others to recognize that kids are getting recess in kindergarten more than what our students are experiencing. And then two, because I was coming from a place of where we once had a good chunk of recess time, and then it was scaled back a bit for instructional hours. And so when the House bill came across, I was blogging for Stories from School, which is a state blogging space for teachers across Arizona. And I thought it would be a really cool case study. So I talked with Mrs. Truitt Lewis, and I went to her with really the idea of what can I do? Can I try this out with my students? What would that experience look like if my kids had 50 minutes of recess? and two, with the understanding that I viewed recess as instructional time.
Right.
And so in the blog, I wrote about that. I wrote about the instruction that took place when my kids had recess, the speaking and listening skills that I was able to learn about for my students that I sometimes didn't get in the classroom, especially those kids who were silent kids, who I think to be silent, but at recess, it was a whole new ballgame. And I learned about my students in a totally different way. So I took the idea of the house bell coming and then kind of my infatuation with recess from all summer long and presented it to Mrs. Stewart Lewis and kind of embarked on a journey from there.
And I read the blog after Miss Brown tried this case study with her class. And what really struck me was the connection that Miss Brown was making with her students. There were students, just different examples through the blog, and in that connection that was up and beyond, those strict academic times. And I thought it was mind-blowing that she was able to make those kind of connections, like she said, with students that normally were quiet and shy in the classroom. She was getting so much information out of them. And the imaginatory play that she got to be a part of, because it was not duty free. She was out there with her kiddos. Mm-hmm. And so that evolved into, well, okay, let's try this out. Let's see what this could mean for our kindergartners. So we piloted it with kindergarten, I would say the spring semester. We just piloted where they would go out. Once again, teacher driven. So I did not put stipulations on what time they could go out. I did not put stipulations on what equipment they could use. It was very organic from their side and how they were going to fit it into their day. And then from there, and I said, okay, we're going to put this into place. Let's check it out. Let's see what we can find. And then let's debrief on it. After we've done this for the spring semester, let's debrief and see, is it worth our time? Is it something that we find benefit in? Because, instructional minutes is a big part of what we have to do in a school. And so we wanted to make sure we were getting the bang for our buck that we had seen with Miss Brown's case study. And so we came back together at the end of the spring semester and had so many second and third order consequences that were positive that we weren't even looking for. We're just like, okay, let's give them some time to go out and play. Let's get to know them on a personal level. And it turned into our teachers were really seeing the benefit of their attention when they came back in. So they would do it in between, and Miss Brown, you can speak more kind of towards the scheduling, but they would do it in between their blocks, their reading and math block. Oh. And so the kiddos would come back in completely refreshed, ready to go, ready to engage, ready to pay attention. And so we thought, well, gosh, that's awesome. When the teachers are sitting there saying I had their attention. Usually I had to fight for it. And so I thought, okay, well, that's a benefit. And then going back and discussing it and really debriefing on it, we realized that we had 0 behavior reports since we had implemented the recess in kindergarten. And then that was just mind blowing. We were like, we're onto something here. Like, this is great. And so what our kiddos get is they get a recess in the morning, depending on when they get dropped off. So we schedule it in for about a 10-minute time, but of course it's how families drop off. Right. And then the teachers have 15 minutes in the morning in between their blocks. And then they have a lunch recess where they go before they go into the lunchroom. And then that's a recess for the day. So just that little 15 minutes that we were giving them, that extra 15 minutes, we were seeing such a change in their behavior, such a change in, like I said, the engagement, even the kiddos that tend to have that overstimulation, that was gone. And we were like, okay, this is neat. And so coming back to, so we shared with the rest of the staff, we're a K2 school with a special needs pre-K. And we shared with the other 2 grade levels these things that we were seeing because of that 15 minutes. And so that evolved into the first and second grade classrooms also having their recess time. Again, very teacher driven. They get to decide when they go out. They get to decide what they're going to do. And it's really up to them how they get it to work. The only stipulation is that it cannot be duty free. And so it's come to where the teachers really enjoy being out there with their kids. They see a totally different side of their kids, and they can connect with them on a much different level because now they're learning about their interests, which they did before. But it's all, like, I'm going to go back to what Ms. Brown said about those kids that she usually wouldn't hear from. Now they're telling her, hey, you know, superheroes are pretty great for me. And then what that looks like in the classroom is really tapping into those interests. So really happy with it. This year, since we put it in, we don't have 0 behavior reports, but I can count them all on one hand. And here we are in, October, and we started the first week of August. So I think it really is a success story. It really is. And again, talking about our kids and how engaged they are and how focused they are. And especially for our kids who need to do that heavy lifting therapy type sensory stuff, they're really getting what they need just from that 15 minutes.
And so what's your total amount of time outdoors?
I would say 35 minutes, and then it would be 45 if you add on the 10 minutes in the morning. But that's hard to gauge when parents drop their kiddos off exactly how much they're getting in the morning.
So about 35 minutes.
And then, of course, if it's a PE day, then they have a 45-minute PE on top of that.
Okay. And what were your behavioral challenges prior to implementing this? What did you see a lot of? Or
a lot of fidgeting, a lot of kiddos hard to stay still, a lot just being bored with what was going on. The kiddos would tend to act out because sitting for a long period of time is hard for them. Our kids who tend to have sensory overload, they've had more of that reaction to overstimulation. So it was nice to see how that tend to cave down and less removals from the classroom and things like that for our kiddos.
Do you find resistance at all because it is duty free? I think that in the 0 to 5 world, you go outside with your kids. I mean, that's because we see that as an extension to the indoor experience. And so we plan for experiences outside, and very infrequently does somebody else besides the teacher go outside. And then in the kindergarten through 3rd grade world, I've been in schools, I'm not kidding when I say this, there'll be 300 to 400 kids on a playground, and with parent aides and no teachers out there. And so I used to have conversations in some districts about the benefit of teachers being in that outdoor, and there was a lot of pushback that's not my role, or that, so did you have that experience at all, that any pushback about going outside with the children?
Well, not to me, because I'm the boss.
Okay, yeah, you want to tell us?
I mean, and I presenting it, and Ms. Brown, I'll let you speak to this as well, but presenting it in a way that what a great opportunity you have to really connect with your kids. That's how it was presented. It was not, hey, you're going to add this extra duty. It was, what a great experience to go out and just have playtime with your kids. No expectations, just playtime. And something that really strengthened that argument was having the pilot with our kinder teachers. And they were able to speak on how that changed what they were doing in the classroom.
And how many teachers were there who piloted it?
There were 5.
5. Okay. And so what was your experience, Danielle, with that?
Just to kind of piggyback on what Mrs. Truitt-Lewis said and to echo the sentiment, because we didn't have an extra recess to begin with, having it not be duty free wasn't a fight, because it wasn't like we were missing out or losing anything. We had an opportunity to engage with our students in a different way. And again, just that ability to build relationships. I can remember vividly this little girl who was going across the monkey bars, and she was kind of like teeter-tottering, like, am I gonna do it? Am I not? And then I was just standing there, and she's like, you know what? When you stand here, you kind of make me brave, and I'm gonna try this.
Oh.
I think that would have never happened had I not been a part of that scenario. If it just was, well, guess what I tried to do today? Monkey bars. So I never felt like it was at a detriment for us to go out with our kids. I kind of enjoyed it. Like the weather was great. I got to hear kids talk. I also got to see kids problem solve in ways that don't always present themselves in the classroom.
Absolutely.
Because when you're always around, they tend to come to you. And because I was like this new figure on the playground with them, a lot of the kids did what they were used to, which is problem solving with themselves. And so to be a bystander and to watch that, I had a whole new appreciation for what they did on the playground.
Were there opportunities, one of the big things that I spend a lot of time talking about is that it's these kind of authentic engagement and interactions that children have that really informs us about who they are and what you were saying, Jennifer, about what their interests are. Were there many opportunities where you took that and you actually were able to build those experiences within the classroom, either of interest or of supporting those developing skills that you observed out on the playground? Were there ever any opportunities like that?
Yes, there were. Not so much with my kids. Last year were really obsessed with zombies. So we didn't do much with zombies last year. I mean, everything became, from what I remember, like playing in kindergarten as just like hide and go seek or tag became zombie hide and go seek. So not so much with that, but my kids were really interested in being one with the earth. So they were really into digging up all the sand or the pebbles that we had on the playground and kind of like burying themselves up to their knees in it, finding the clay that was underneath. And so we took that experience and we used it to learn about earthworms. And so we went around to all the places that we had outside, like, do you think earthworms would be living in the sand that you guys dig every day? And for a while, kids were looking for earthworms in the sand and they weren't coming up with it. And so then we took some earthworms from a tackle and bait shop and we're able to go outside, and when we released them, the kids were able to connect. Like, putting the earthworms probably in the sand pit in the playground, not the best idea, but can we put it in this place where there is dirt and it's kind of moist and there's not lots of traffic? Okay. So that, I would say, was an experience we took away.
And something too that I remember, a story that I remember from this was the ants, because they do ant farms and things in kindergarten. So you would see these little guys following this trail of ants, and they would just be, what are you guys doing? We're going to go find their home. We're going to go see where, and they would follow all the way to the cracks and wherever it was. And then it was, well, what do you think's down there? Or why do you think they like the crack? Why do you think they like to be in the pavement down the cracks? And then a little kid saying, it's got to be really hot because it's really hot on that stuff. And then just the conversation that they would have from those ants, and then taking that back into the classroom, because they did study ants and their homes and their habitats and things like that. So I remember that being a story of where I just thought, we can't make that stuff up. That's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's so many, I think that, and you've joined the kindergarten experience, so you've had our first module of social emotional development, and really looking, I think you all haven't had organization of space and time just yet, right?
No.
Almost. Okay.
Almost,
And so in that session, we really take a look at developing opportunities for that kind of engagement in the classroom to really extend. And the outdoor experience could be such a rich opportunity as a part of the project work, or creating what we call provocations, which is setting up opportunities for children to use materials in different sort of ways. And so it's really kind of cool to hear schools playing with this idea of teachers going outside and engaging with children in authentic ways and being able to take that information, because that's really what formative assessment is about. It's really what am I hearing and seeing, and how do I use this information? And what I think is really incredible, and it's one of the things that when we talk about the indoor environment, those kiddos that are shy or quiet or just, for whatever reason, sometimes they're English language learners, and they have that silent period of time where they're just trying to observe what's happening around them. Something pretty magical happens when they have the freedom to just kind of be without any expectations of answering a question or, you know, working collaboratively with someone else, where they are just free to explore. It's almost like you get inside their world in a way that you just couldn't in the classroom. So I appreciate the stories that you share around that, because it's something we keep saying.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
great.
and that's how it came up. The teachers at the session, we lightly covered formative assessment, and so we talked, you know, within the behaviors that some other teachers were having challenges with. And I remember the teachers are saying that they were able to get a lot of their you know, the things that they're required to assess. They were able to get those things done during that time. Otherwise, you know, those opportunities, like Danielle said, wouldn't have been available in the classroom.
Right. And thinking outside the box on the different things that you can do out there. We have, this is a
It's a beautiful area.
idea, right. And this is a preschool thing, but I had one of the teacher from the special needs pre-K, they were counting as they jumped off something. So even you put that counting in there, and you put, you know, just the different words that they're learning and things like that. You can really think outside the box on how to bring all those pieces in.
Absolutely. I mean, just I think one of you mentioned about talking and listening. That's a whole part of our ELA standards. And so just the practice of being so intentional about that, or building vocabulary as you're outside, whether it is in an experience where you're jumping or that you're just noticing things. I mean, there's so much more things to notice, I think, outside than inside sometimes. And so the opportunities to really deepen experiences are so full. It's just being creative. It's being creative. And I think giving permission, maybe, that children are learning, and that it isn't just, there was one administrator who I was working with, and he had said to the teachers that they were spending too much time outside, and that they needed to scale that back because they were losing X number of, he had figured out over the course of like a month how much instructional time they were.
Oh my gosh.
By spending this little extra bit of time outside. So it was like 5 or 10 minutes extra each time they were outside. And he was really adamant about that. So he and I had a conversation, because he was hiring me for leadership development. And I was like, I don't think I'm the right person for you. I said, I'm going to fight with the teachers for those extra 5 to 10 minutes, because there is value. And I think that when you do think out of the box, you could show that children are learning.
Yeah, and we talked about in the social emotional, you know, you talk about becoming a community and all those pieces. Well, this year we have a little boy who is all into bugs, the grasshoppers, any bug. He's just all about the bugs. So in the classroom, he is the bug, like his job, if there's a spider or a bug, it's his job to take it out, because, you know, you see how he is out on the playground and that's what he's drawn to. That's what he wants to do. And he just feels like he's the bug hero in that classroom. So just, you know, a lot of happiness in that, because he really feels that he's out there saving the bugs and that's his job in the community. And it's just, it's great.
I don't want to put Jennifer on the spot, but I mean, I go back to what Isela was talking about you know, Jennifer, as an administrator, how are you spreading this message? Because a lot of times it has to come from an administrator perspective. So that, because I know there was a conversation in our session where you were telling them, the Sierra Vista folks, like, you know, tell your administrator to come talk to me. You know, we can talk about this, and this is working for us, and I'll explain how. And you know, how have you been able to spread, you know, that message more within your meetings at that level?
I have shared it with administrators that I'm comfortable sharing it with, and just putting it out there to say, come check it out, see what we do, see how it works for us. Yeah. But also kind of waiting for putting it out there in a general sense and waiting for people to come and ask about it, because it's what works for us. And I would like to think it's what works for everybody, but also kind of pushing that onto someone. I don't want to go in that way, but I do speak to people about how the merit that it has and the exciting opportunities that we've seen with our school and our discipline.
Yeah.
Did you have any push, because every school district is its own country, is kind of the way that I look at it. And they have their own culture and their own rules and their own everything. And so that's been a huge lesson for us, because we are working with schools across the entire state. And so in some states, the principals have autonomy in making these kinds of decisions, whereas other school districts, it has to go through a superintendent. What's the structure like in your school district? Is it something that you were able to do on your own, or did you have to go to higher ups to get permission granted?
I had the autonomy to do it. We talked about it, just that, hey, this is coming down the pike. And the House bill was very much something we spoke about in leadership and on that regard. But no, that wasn't I had the autonomy to kind of make that decision once Ms. Brown proposed it to me. Yeah. And I thought, hey, yeah, let's give it a go. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
And did you implement this did I hear you or did I mishear you, first, second, and third as well, or just kinder?
So last year it was spring semester for kinder. This year it's everybody.
Everybody.
So K1 and 2.
Yeah. Okay, K1 and 2.
Uh-huh. Right.
Awesome.
And I just want to touch on the community aspect that Mrs. Stewart-Lewis brought up, because I think for me, the community was built not only with my students in my class, but because you never knew what teacher was going to go out at what time, I was able to meet and get to know the 120 other students in that kindergarten hallway. And so it gives you an appreciation for what's going on with your colleagues as well, because now you understand more about their students, they get to know your students. And I think that was a great takeaway as well, because that community was built like classroom to classroom, but teacher to teacher. And so I think that was a nice add-on that I don't think anyone was really expecting.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. All right. Do we have any other comments or questions?
I'm checking questions here on Facebook. Just a comment from Caroline. I think Caroline, is she Washington School District? I would be more than happy to supervise kids if we had 15 minutes more of recess. In the long run, it would be reduce student and teacher stress while allowing much more productivity. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we found. That's exactly what we found from the teachers. It was, gosh, they're so much more ready to learn when they were able to get out and just get their wiggles out and play and have fun.
Absolutely. And Danielle, I would definitely be interested if you can send us the link to your blog. I'd love to post that out as well, just to kind of spread this idea. I mean, like Isela said, we do this in early childhood in the 0 to preschool realm. And so this concept, I'm glad it's catching on. No, I wanted to catch on more. For sure. Does anybody else have any questions? Ms. Gonzalez, do you have any?
Just listening. I'm just really thankful for the opportunity to listen in on the conversation and on all the wonderful feedback that your team is getting, Ms. Stewart-Lewis, at your school, seeing the reduction in the referrals that you're getting from even that minimal time that you're increasing on that outside time. And it just reinforces what research is showing. I'm reading about what's happening in other countries. I mean, every time I read about Finland, I'm going, I just want to move to Finland. I'm going, no, we're going to bring Finland here. What is it why can't we just do that here? And so it's, grassroots efforts at this point. It's really just changing mindsets about what is it that children are needing. I taught special ed preschool for over 13 years, and being an administrator in special ed administrator, seeing the mindset that, okay, these kids are doing what's developmentally appropriate in preschool, yet in 3 months we're expecting them to be a student in kindergarten, and they're just not ready. And yet kindergarten teachers are expecting them to do that. And so it's just that mind shift that needs to happen.
Right. And sorry. No, I was going to say, you're exactly right. It's that shift in mindset, because, the biggest argument I feel that comes out with an extra recess is the loss of instructional time. Well, when you look at it as instructional time, just a different way of providing instructional time, then that argument is not really an argument any longer.
Just
And I
moving
think that,
your instruction outside.
right.
But I think it's the lack of understanding of how children learn.
Right.
And so I think that just historically, whatever happened in the last 15, 20 years around the whole process of the age of accountability is what I call it. And this perspective that learning looks like this. And the truth of it is, not a whole lot of gains have occurred as a result of this very didactic sort of approach to education, this very siloed approach. We don't see significant gains. It's not like all of a sudden that was the magic cure-all, and we see now children that are functioning at higher levels than they ever were. And the truth of it is that folks didn't pay attention to best practices and what the research said. Instead, it was really focused, because the research isn't that different than it was 20 years ago about what children need. I think that, and then we also have a lot of folks that just don't understand little kids, the kindergarten through third grade. And so that's been my greatest challenge, is helping administrators understand what learning looks like. And this is the cool thing that's happening, though, is that this research has been, very consistent over the years. And I've been in the field for nearly 30 years. So it's been very consistent throughout all of those years, just getting more and more detailed in terms of the technology that we have now. And so what's happening, though, is that we see an increase in the older children in middle school and high school, and the need for them to move, the need for them to be thinking critically. That's where we get STEM and STEAM and STREAM and all of these opportunities for children to really get deeper in their learning experience at the older level. And so I get so many middle school and high school administrators now who want to engage in a conversation about how do you take this idea, this concept of putting children in charge of their learning so that they're in the driver's seat of their learning and still, have that level of accountability. And so I think it is, we have to start having a different conversation, and it is a grassroots effort. I think teachers like Danielle who go, you know what, I'm reading something on Facebook, or I'm reading something here, let's give it a try. And that administrators like Jennifer who goes, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
I
need
think
more of
that,
that.
yeah, I think it's really, because as much as we try, there's so many structures that sometimes get in the way of, no, we're not going to try that because we don't trust that it's going to work.
Right.
So this grassroots effort, this perspective is really what I've kind of wrapped my arms around.
Right. And we've just found that it pays us tenfold, and it pays our kids too. Going back to doing what's right for kids. When you're at a KP school, they learn through play. And so we need to provide that as much as we can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Is there any other, let me see the comments on Facebook. There's no other comments or questions. I think we're good we can close it out. I really appreciate everybody coming on and talking about this. Danielle, definitely, I'll probably try to email you to get the link for your blog. I'd love to post that out because I know that I'm going to get questions about that from our teachers to share that out as well. So thank you guys so much for coming on.
I'm going to jump right back on, and I'm going to try to do a 10-minute segment.
Okay, great.
I'm going to try.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.